So, as you read by the title, I want to talk about 13 Reasons Why, a show that I didn't think I'd ever really talk about on this channel because it's been off the air for quite a few years now, and it's not a show that I feel like gets talked about a lot these days. But lately I've been reading the book on 13 Reasons Why. I've been reading a lot of different stuff, but I got this one recently and I've been checking it out, trying to see the difference between the book and the adaptation because I may or may not be planning to do some kind of video about books and adaptations and which ones are the best and which ones are the worst, so stay tuned. But in reading this novel, I've kind of been thinking about the show of 13 Reasons Why. This show that at the time when it came out was a little bit controversial for a multitude of different reasons. Of course, because the show is dealing with a topic that is kind of hefty and kind of hard to talk about, which is suicide and depression and words that I can't really say without my video getting kind of blackballed by YouTube. It's too late. But either way, it's a very, very dark show that if you don't know what the basic plot is, well, this girl, Hannah Baker, commits suicide. And after she dies, she leaves these 13 tapes that explain these 13 reasons for why she had done it. Each tape representing a person in her life that may have contributed to why she eventually made the decision to do what she did. And we follow this guy, Clay Jensen, who had a very big crush on Hannah Baker, and he has been personally affected by her death, more so than a lot of other people. And we follow his journey as he slowly listens to these tapes, and he learns why this girl that he was essentially in love with did what she did. And it's a very messy show that tries to study kind of the cause and effects of being a high school student, the things that happen when you're in high school, both the terrible and also the good things, and how people of that age, this teenage years, how they deal with that, both the awkwardness, the challenges, and the horribleness of things they may experience. And this show got a lot of crap for being kind of a little bit blunt with what it was trying to show and tell with these characters and in this world, but it was a show that I always thought was pretty good, at least the first season. Because this show did end up going well beyond what the book actually covered, and it did 4 seasons of television. We'll talk about that in a second. For the most part, I really want to focus on season 1 and talk about how good I actually think it is and why I believe it is underrated. Now, I remember watching this back when I was in high school, and I personally found it to be one of the more accurate takes on high school life, the way that people kind of talk to each other, the way people treated each other. I felt that what happened in 13 Reasons Why season 1 was one of the more accurate takes on high school at the time. At the time, most of the stuff that was out there, TV shows especially like Riverdale, just felt incredibly inaccurate to the modern day high school experience. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air to watch 13 Reasons Why the first time and see kind of these characters that I felt like I knew people like this in my everyday life. I also think the first season does a really good job, and actually even a better job than the book, of getting you to care about the characters. Clay Jensen is a very well-written character. This character that has been through some shit, right? And he is put in this terrible scenario, this terrible circumstance, and his journey of trying to find out why he's on these tapes. Is he the reason why? What terrible thing could he have done? Does he blame himself for the death of this person he loved? It's a really well-written journey, and I actually think everybody involved in the cast and everybody did a great job selling it. Some of the other side characters, there are problems with a few of them, but characters like Justin and Jessica, I think, are all written well, and it becomes very clear as you watch the show and as you go through the season that although Hannah Baker at first is presented as this sole victim and everybody on these tapes are kind of the perpetrators of terrible things that they did to her, you slowly realize that it's not as black and white, that there are other victims involved, and that everybody in this show is kind of suffering from something. And it ends up being a very strong season of television that builds to, I don't want to say a satisfying ending, but a conclusion that leaves you kind of rattled and emotionally affected in a way that not many shows are able to pull off. And I don't think that first season, although it was incredibly popular at the time, I don't think it gets enough credit for being an extremely well-written, well-paced, well-directed, and emotional season of television. And I think maybe that's because it was watered down by the following seasons. Because, of course, they kept on going. Season 2 was sort of an epilogue of Season 1. What happens after the tapes get out? What happens after Season 1? And it kind of covers the court case that surrounds Hannah Baker's suicide and the different rapes that happened and all this stuff with the character of Bryce. And it's certainly a weaker season than I do actually think waters down Season 1. You learn more about Hannah Baker that is not in the book, and that is not in Season 1 of the show. That kind of makes her character less likable and less kind of relatable in a weird way. Clay also goes down this weird journey where he's seeing Hannah Baker as a ghost. It's kind of like the Joker in Arkham Knight. I don't think it works. Anytime that trope occurs in something, it's very rare that it works. I think Cyberpunk did it okay because there's a logical explanation for it, and of course, Arkham Knight did it fine. But Season 2 just kind of felt forgettable, and it kind of felt like a tacked-on addition to Season 1 to be this epilogue-y, satisfying conclusion to a story you didn't really need that kind of conclusion for. Then they had Season 3, which completely takes out Hannah Baker. Her story is done, and we're just going to continue with these characters and tell kind of a high school drama story with these characters that you've already grown to know. I was very mixed on this when they announced it, because the entire point of the show of 13 Reasons Why is the story of Hannah Baker and how it affects the characters around her, and Season 3 ended up actually being pretty okay. Maybe the most controversial season of television I've ever watched, because I feel like you either fall under one side of this argument. Either you're on the side of what they tried to do with this season is wrong and they should have never attempted it, or you're on the side of they attempted it, they kind of nailed it, I give him props for it. I am kind of the latter. Now, if you didn't know what Season 3 is, it takes the character of Bryce, who is essentially the big, bad, evil person of this show. He's the guy that, he is a serial rapist, he did terrible things to so many people, and the goal of Season 3, with the writers, was to try to make him understandable. To try to sort of redeem him in a way. To take this character that is so unredeemable in the eyes of everybody, that it should be impossible, and maybe it is, but they tried, and they succeed in a way that was so unexpected, and for me at least, effective in a way that made the season very, very good. Because I believe Season 3 is less so a study of this particular character, and more so a study of evil, and how it kind of manifests in people, and this unavoidable itch to do terrible things that may exist out there in the world, and it makes this character so riveting to watch, and the performance by the guy that played Bryce is very, very underrated. And we see this echoed with the character of Tyler, and there's this school shooting arc that happens, and I do think Season 3, although yet again unnecessary and does water down what made Season 1 so excellent, I think it is probably the best case scenario for continuing this kind of show and telling the story. I think it's very underrated. And then Season 4 came out. Waste of time. Season 4 is the season that I think really kind of destroyed the image of this show. I couldn't even tell you what happened in Season 4. It's kind of a long season of dealing with PTSD, and it wanted to be kind of this ultra study on depression in high school students and dealing with this traumatic stuff that has gone on in their past. But the issue is, we had already gone through many, many arcs like this on this show, and pretty much all of it was covered in Season 1, which is, yet again, the big problem with the show. It probably should have just ended in Season 1. But Season 4, you really kind of feel that directionless writing that they had delved into in the follow-up seasons, and it tries to land the show in a comfortable, complex, satisfying conclusion for these characters to send them off and have that final ending, but it ends up just being so unsatisfying that it almost ruins the whole show. So you might be wondering, after I say that the last season is such a disaster, how is this show underrated? It's because I still think that first season is so unbelievably good that I think more people should just go and watch that as one singular limited series experience and just sit with it and let that be kind of what they remember about 13 Reasons Why. Because it really is truly brilliant, even if you fall under the lines of this is not accurate, this is a little kind of grotesque and exploitative of this generation of people in high school and what may or may not occur and what actually occurs in real life. If you think all that, that's completely fine, but to me, the risky nature of that, of delving into that side of things in this generation of people, I think is kind of what makes it worth watching. That is what art is. It's trying to tell these risky stories and connect it with reality and relate to the people watching it. And for me, at least, watching it all those years back, it accomplished it. And I know what it did for a lot of other people because this show was a big deal when it first came out. And reading the book and seeing all the differences between the book and the actual show, very interesting as well. Maybe, yet again, a larger video on that, talking about a bunch of different books. We'll see. But yeah, have you guys watched 13 Reasons Why? What do you think about it? Let me know down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications. I post every single day. I've been going for like 5 months. I haven't missed a day, so please make sure to stick around. I'll see you in the next one.